This is The Unhappy Millionaire, where entrepreneurs and other top performers discover how to go beyond the bank balance to create thriving, joyful lives. For more, visit theunhappymillionaire.com. And now, on to the show. All right, Tal, what are we talking about today?
I thought today we'll talk about who you are, Don.
Who I am?
Yeah.
That sounds like a fun topic.
This time, I think we should dive in a little bit and talk about something really, really important. It was the turning point in my understanding of happiness as a whole and who I am and so on. So let's dive into the question, who are you? So let's start with this. Who are you, Don?
All right, well, I'll pretend you don't know me for the sake of argument, but I'm a marketing sales writer who lives in Michigan. I have 2 lovely kids, 2 bitter cats, a puppy, a girlfriend, and let's call it somewhere in the 40s.
Let me ask you again, who are you, Don? Because I still don't know you. You gave me the demographics of a person that lives somewhere, has a couple of kids and a girlfriend and a couple of cats. The only thing I started knowing you about is that you do something specific. And I want the specifics. Can you give me the specifics of who Don is so I can separate Don from all the other people I know who have 2 kids and a puppy?
I would say I mentioned a writer, marketing, but I can put that more specifically. Like my whole life is really built around a passion I have for ideas, for understanding ideas, for communicating ideas, for talking about ideas. Part of my link between my girlfriend and I is that we're both passionate about ideas and about how to communicate.
What ideas do you love specifically? What ideas interest you and what ideas bore you?
I'm interested in the humanities, anything to do with human beings and human behavior, but above all, philosophy, which I think is the fundamental science.
If I talk to you about a specific law that just passed in the Senate and all the permutations in the process of approval, you don't like those ideas, right? You like abstract ideas.
Yeah. If you're a really compelling storyteller, I'll listen. But
awesome.
In general, I'm interested in ideas with big stakes and that are fundamental to human life.
Tell me, who are the people you admire most? Just a short list.
Well, as you can probably imagine, Ayn Rand is at the top of my list. I really admire creators, particularly people like Steve Jobs, who I think combines art and art and business. I really admire that kind of vision.
You got a writer there because you said you love writing. Other than Rand that combines writing and philosophy, is there someone just for writing, how they write?
Yeah, well, I'll name one person who pushed me in a direction to be more story-driven, which is a writer named Theodore Dalrymple. That's his pen name. And he's a psychologist who is very critical of modern culture, but just his ability to use stories and brilliantly written sentences to convey his point always impressed me, and I desperately try to imitate it with mixed results.
Great. Tell me one thing about how you parent your kids. Most important thing.
The most important thing is I tried to cultivate and respect their independence. That is, I'm not trying to turn them into little Don Watkins, not trying to get them to hold my philosophy or live my dreams. I want them to build their own life for themselves. And I try to give them the tools to do that.
Give me the best hobby you have that has nothing to do with creativity. The most interesting thing, and why is it interesting?
Baseball. And what's interesting about it is I deliberately chose it. I was interested as a kid. I lost touch with it, and I decided I need a hobby as an adult, and I deliberately cultivated or recultivated.
And it's great because?
The 2 aspects. One is it connects me to my childhood, but the second, more specific one is the drama and tension you get from reading a novel. But there's always a little part of you that knows, yeah, this is going to end the way the author wants it to end. And I can predict that. You never know how a baseball game is going to end.
If we pause now, I know so much. Not only I know so much about you, I've integrated, at least as someone who has done it with a lot of people, your creative life and your relationships and what you do for recreation. If I added other elements, I'm shining a light on a consciousness called Don Watkins. There's no way for me to cut your skull open and look at a Don. No, but not even you can do that from the inside. The only way to answer the question, who am I, is to see what my consciousness, this thing we're still studying the nature of, is responding to in life. And those things project a light onto who we are. And by the way, you will respond to things that do not project light on who you are because those are not your chosen values and you sucked it from someone else, what Ayn Rand calls second-handedness. First-handed values are really light beams on this thing called dawn or Tal. And nobody told us to pay so much attention to the question of like, who am I? What am I trying to serve? So I would say the learning from this exercise, that is a very powerful thing if one does it from time to time, is that we are our values. We are what we respond to genuinely and authentically. And if you understand that your whole life should be a pursuit of those things, then now we have clarity of what happiness is, because it's a result of pursuing those things successfully.
Well, and it's good that you corrected yourself and said we should be focused on values, because I think a lot of people are focused on, I have certain obligations I have to fulfill, certain expectations. Life is a series of things I have to do. And I think part of what is crucial about values is this is what I want. This is what I'm going after. And when I just think about the people who have a strong sense of personal identity, it's really wrapped up in the fact of there's things that they care about, that they go after, that they're dedicated to, that they want, versus, well, I'm taking orders from other people, from society at large, from God. Like, no, they have something that they want. And I just remember years ago, I went to a show by Penn and Teller in Vegas, and they're magicians, comedians, but I had known Teller. We were taking a history class together, and I got to go backstage, and they were signing autographs, and they sent me back they said, find the monkey room. And turns out you couldn't miss it because there's a door just covered in monkeys. And I go in and I sit down, there's a few other people there, and right across from me is comedy legend, but also personal hero of Don Watkins, Steve Martin. Yeah. You asked for some of my heroes, and I'm a big fan of stand-up comedy, and he's sitting across from me. And what was striking was he exuded a sense of personal identity, but it all came from the fact that he was just passionate. He was passionate about show business, about magic. He spent the whole evening like a fan of Penn and Teller going, oh, it was so cool when you guys did that, and how did you do this? And how did you test that out? And what works with what audiences? It was this passion for the art that gave him that strong identity. And I think that's so rare, that kind of strong sense of what I value, that when I see it in people, I'm just it's magnetic.
And that's what attracts you to other people. By the way, if you ask what love is, you see someone else having a strong sense of identity. So you know who they are and you're saying, that's what I want. And because they're projecting values. Now, let's take it a step forward, right? We all share basic values, like we need to breathe, we need to drink, we need to eat and sleep. And those are things that sustain our lives. And there's a truth, there's almost like a dependency, a hierarchy of values, because you cannot pursue things if you don't have anything to eat. But if you're talking about, and I want to reclaim this word spiritual, okay? Because it usually, when you talk about spiritual, it's like, oh, something mystic and religious and so on. No, the spiritual values, the ones that make us human, that separates us from other animals, is those things we do in order to, in a way, express our humanity, our creativity, our ability to conceptualize, integrate, and then go do something with it. And I think the next thing we need to talk about is, what values do you choose? So let's say we do an exercise. I ask you to take sticky notes and fill a whole wall in your house with all the things that make life worth living, all the great things about life, all the things you love doing, all the activities, all the places, all the people, all the hobbies, everything that makes life worth living, that excite you. And you stand in front of those. Usually when I ask people to do that, they come up with like 50 things, 70 things. And then the next question is, are you sure that all of those things will actually make your life better? Are they actually a reflection of who you are? And this is where the world of ethics comes in. The way I look at ethics, it's a system that allows you to filter the things you should be, the value candidates. Is the thing that I think I want, will it promote my life towards more happiness and self-esteem and self-expression? Is it authentically mine? And is it something that promotes my life? And this is where a good morality filter will throw away all the whims that will never happen. I want to be an opera singer. I don't have the voice for it. Not going to happen. Your morality says think rationally about what you're going to pursue. All of the duties will fall, all the whims and duties. Like my mother wants me to be a lawyer, right? That will not pass a good morality filter. So what we need morality for is to think rationally about what values that we know about ourselves will actually are worthy of our pursuit. Is that woman good for me? Is she going to make me happy? Is she the right partner for me? And why? And there's a lot to be said about how you do it. Maybe you can do that later on, but this is what morality is all about.
That's very similar to how I think about it. I mean, I think of it as a blueprint. And if you think about a blueprint, right, it's the structure and plan for a building. And there's certain facts about what's going to make that building stand. You can't just start throwing materials together by happenstance. Oh, this looks pretty, and maybe I'll put a wall here, and maybe I'm just going to lean things on a stick. No, there's certain facts about what will allow a structure to stand. But within those principles of proper building, there's infinite variety, right? So no two buildings have to look the same. And so I think there's a certain blueprint for what a thriving, happy human life looks like, but there's wild variation in between there. The kind of life that you live, the kind of life that I live, the kind of life that Thomas Jefferson lived, the kind of life that Ayn Rand and Aristotle lived, they're radically different in their detail and the texture and the friends that you have and the career that you pursue. But there's a core structure to it that differentiates that from the life of a Jeffrey Dahmer or some person who's the life of a crackhead, which they have their own structure, but it's a self-destructive and other destructive structure.
Actually, it's one thing, something you gave me a while back. You gave me the word preference versus objectivity. And that's so powerful because we can ask them, are you happy? Let's say you were talking to a crackhead, right? And so I do meth all day and I'm happy. Now, he cannot say that objectively, right? Because you can evaluate, is that leading towards a fulfilled, fully expressed life? He said, yes, because that's what I want. No, there's an objectivity to values. They have to pass specific criteria. And if they don't, they are not values, objectively not values. So I want to differentiate. You have values and they need to be objective. They need to be truly representing who you are, what you truly, authentically respond to, and they need to integrate with everything else in your life. They need to be what Ayn Rand called in a state of non-contradictory joy. This is what makes values objective. Now, they are preferential. As you said, you can build whatever skyscraper of a life that you want. That's your preference. It's not subjective, because objectivity means whatever I want, and that's not what values are. It's not whatever you want. It's whatever actually makes you happier. And so if you take away the word subjectivity, everything becomes clear. They're objective. They need to pass that test. And they are your preference. If you like chocolate versus vanilla, good for you, right? So that is another thing that I think people are confused about. It's not a whim. It's not a duty. It's things that needs to be objectively yours.
Yeah, and I want to underline one aspect of like why that is and why we're making such a big deal about the issue of values being objective or there being a certain core structure of what a successful human life can be. You mentioned Rand's conception of happiness as non-contradictory joy. The whole essence of not being happy is being in conflict. You're in conflict with yourself. I want this, I don't want this. You mentioned the druggie who says, I love doing meth. If you've ever actually met these people, and I've met a few of them, like that almost always, certainly if it's past the first month of doing it, I can't stop doing it. I don't want to. I know it's wrecking my life. They're in a deep state of conflict. That is the nature of unhappiness. Or it can be a conflict of you versus the external world. Like, I want this thing and I just can't get it. But the essence of unhappiness is conflict. And so to achieve happiness, it is that all my values fit together. They work together. My life is going in the right direction. It's all working harmoniously. I'm not one step forward, two steps back.
I want to say something about how you can get to this harmony without a clear sense of identity. There's no litmus test of what's promoting my life and what doesn't. And let's be much more nuanced. Let's talk about the unhappy millionaire. The unhappy millionaire does a lot of things right, but his life is not integrating into a unified whole. There are areas in his or her life that just don't add up. my relationship sucks and I don't know what to do with it, or something's going on in my business and I don't know, I can't get myself out of bed, I don't know what's going on. A happy person should be very curious about the areas in his life or her life that feel like something's wrong. There's a conflict. It doesn't have to be I'm doing drugs. No, it could be so subtle. What I'm trying to do here is actually not mine. I'm still carrying something that maybe my father expected me to do, or for some reason I feel a sense of duty to be okay with what that employee is doing, right? Or this sense of ideas that I feel like there's something wrong with pursuing them. So the beauty of non-contradictory way of pursuing your values is that they all, in a way, again, project light on the same thing, which goes back to the question at the beginning of this episode of who are you? Is this serving Don's life? Is this serving Don's identity as far as he knows who he is? Now, sometimes you have candidates and you have no idea if that will contribute to your life. And so you experiment into it. You take a new job, or I know you took a new puppy. Is that going to enrich my life? I have good evidence that it will from everything I know, but sometimes it doesn't work. I tried. It's honestly such a wonderful exploration, if you will, of values, the way I see my life. And this is why a lot of what I do when I consult to people about happiness is what I call building a value or muscle. Being really good in identifying, smelling, seeing the values out in life, identifying from your identity to what those values can represent to you, a link that says, yes, they are life-serving and life-affirming to me. I have a hypothesis that this value will enrich my life. You try it, you introspect in order to see how you react to them. And this is why this exercise that I do called Value Galaxy is so powerful. It's like building an inventory of values in one's life. And then using, like we said, the morality filter of like, can I just cross some of them? Because I have a suspicion that they're not promoting to my happiness. And let's dive into them and try to see in what way they're not contributing to my happiness, because there's some conflicts. And once you do that, there's a whole process which I call value domain map, which is you segment them to the type of energy and time they require, because there is an inherent conflict with the time. Time presents a new constraint that even if you had all your amazing rational values in front of you waiting to be pursued, you still have to make a selection. This thing or that thing. Work a little bit more, invest less time with my kids, more time with my kids, less hours of work, more money into my next vacation or more money towards the house. There's the energy and the focus in your time are limited. And that is what the pursuit of happiness is. It's the allocation, the selection and the allocation of your time. I always say that in front of me on a big whiteboard are 4 domains of values. Let's do that for you, Don, for a second. Tell me, what is the number one value in the domain of career, of your work? Maybe even 2 things you're working on.
I mean, the number one value for me is the organization we both work with, the Ayn Rand Institute. Mm-hmm. I've been passionate about that organization since I discovered Ayn Rand at 15. And that's the core of my thinking, is how to make it a great place to work and a great organization impacting the world.
And I know it's good because you talked about how you loved ideas, always loved ideas. And this organization is about ideas. Great. It sounds amazing. What else do you do creatively?
Writing. Putting words on a page is the core activity that I'm good at, fulfilled by, and really just deeply interested in all the intricacies of doing well.
Okay, give me one creative value that interests you and you really, really want to do it, but you don't have the time to pursue it at this point in life.
I wanted to be really good at debates, but there's a whole extra art to debate that it would require a kind of dedication that, I don't have the space for.
Let's move to hobbies. What hobbies are you really investing time in right now?
Now, essentially, I don't have capacity for much. So baseball is the one that actually gets time. And then I pretend to invest time in reading literature. But usually I get 3 pages and set the book down for 6 months.
Because you know that your time is going to other things and it's okay. You don't feel guilty because you're conscious of the fact that the circle of energy that you have has a specific radius. Not everything can fit into it. I'm sure you have relationships you're investing in right now in your life and some that you're not. And you have friends that I should maybe call them more, but I just don't have the time. And there's another aspect of values of like what creates the money for you to save the energy for you to do other things. Maybe one day do less of one thing and focus on debate. So if we build those 4 domains, which I call career and work, relationships, which is the second domain, and there are several types of relationships in it. The other one is health and rejuvenations, everything around hobbies. This is another domain where things are competing for your time. And then the fourth one is a very different domain, which is money, what creates the energy, the frozen energy called money, for you to invest in other things and make sure that you can do more things in the future, including expensive vacation. So if you zoom back and you see the top values, let's say top 1, 2, 3 things in those 4 domains, those 12 things are your life. It's everything. It's like a map. It's so focusing. Every day that I wake up, I look at my value domain map. It's like, okay, today's about this and that and this. Awesome. What's going on with that thing that I haven't done for a little while? Yeah, you know what? I really feel like I need to go back to my racing simulator. I haven't touched it for a month. I really want to see how I'm improving my iRating. Which is iRacing, how good of a driver you are. And it gives you this sense of non-contradictory joy because it's an optimization exercise of taking your time and investing it in the most wonderful things that are available to you in life. And sometimes a new value comes in unexpectedly that is way more exciting than a value that you already have. And then there's a conflict. And then you ask yourself, do I go for it? Do I have the money to invest in it? Do I have the energy now in my life to pursue another relationship and so on? But the harmony and the non-contradiction and all of knowing that you're going after your happiness is everything we talked about, choosing the right values for you and deciding which ones to pursue with your limited time. And the outcome of all of this, the thing you cannot put your hands on without doing all of this is happiness. It's the result of someone pursuing their authentic values successfully. It's like money. You cannot grab it from someone else. No one can give it to you. You have to earn it. And it's your self-esteem that is elevated. And I feel like I'm thriving as a human being when I'm really clear on what are the things I want and how do I go. And I don't. One of the greatest things, it creates a filter for all the things you should not do, all the people you should not pursue, all the hobbies that you think you want, all the money that you don't need in order to do things you don't want, right? And avoid those vicious cycle of going after things that do not really elevate your life just to find out 5, 10 years later that, why did I do this? And unfortunately, I meet a lot of people in their 60s and 70s that never ask the questions, who are you? Where it all starts.
Well, I just want to highlight one aspect of this that I think if people really did this value domain exercise would be life-changing. One of the things it forces you to do is confront that there are these different domains in your life. And I think what people often do, and this especially for parents, is they judge themselves in a single domain as if it were the only domain of their lives. So they judge themselves as a parent by, if I was only a parent, I should be at everything. I should be constantly watching and thinking. I should never miss an appointment. And it's paralyzing, and it creates this impossible conflict because there are these other domains. They have to show up at work, or they do have friends or a romantic partner that they're investing in. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to come up with a way of life that honors all of the important values that you're trying to pursue. And that starts with recognizing which ones really are important versus what are nice to haves or not important at all. And they've just come on my desk because I think I have to. But I think that idea of the way you judge yourself is, am I honoring all my important values? Not am I able to do the impossible, which is meet every possible demand of every possible thing all at once.
There's another fallacy, which is you compare yourself to a level of a genius sometimes in those domains and say, if I'm not at that level. So there's many ways in which you can frustrate yourself in an irrational way. First, like you said, how good will I be if that's the only thing I would do? And how good will I be if I was better than who I am? which is another way. It's like you're not someone else. You are who you are. I'm dealing with writing right now. I need to appreciate that this is the way I write. This is the level that I'm not going to be a Victor Hugo, and I'm not going to be an amazing nonfiction writer. I need to ask myself at the end of every day, am I pursuing the things that are good for Tal? Am I pursuing the things at the level that Tal can expect himself to pursue? If the answer is yes, you've done it. That's it. And sometimes it means, what would happen if I invested more time in this? Would I get better? Yes. Is it worth time at the expense of not doing those two other things that I was planning doing? If the answer is yes, yeah, go do it and become better. But the standard that I hold myself to is, have I used my time rationally, effectively to pursue my most important values, again, in a rational way? And if the answer is yes, I feel great about myself because I'm extracting all the juice, if you will, that there's in me as potential and in the limited time that I have. And that's what happiness is.
I'm Don Watkins, he's Tal Safani, and this has been The Unhappy Millionaire. Ready to take the next step in your journey? Visit theunhappymillionaire.com, where you can find powerful resources for building a life that you love and details on how you can work with Tal and me.